Matt Dowd with us on Pope Francis. It's been a different pope, isn't it?
Totally different pope, and it's unbelievable the power of the symbolic actions that he's done in conjunction with what he said. He's totally flipped the view of the Vatican and the view of the Catholic Church in a very few months from symbolic action.
From where you sit, the move from Benedict to Francis has been as abrupt as it could ever be.
Well, yeah, and just how he operates, just what he wears, where he lives, all of those sorts of things, and how he conducts himself, which puts much more power in his words, and that's why his words have come across more forcefully than other popes.
Scarlet?
Well, he seems like a celebrity pope, Tim. I mean, wherever he goes, people pay more attention to him than they did to his predecessors. You mentioned he has a blunt way of speaking. Is he looking to change and transform the church?
Yes. I mean, his style is very appealing. And what's surprising is that he's got a very challenging message here, as you were saying, but yet people are listening. He doesn't seem to be alienating people. So it's that dual ability, which is really remarkable.
You make the Catholic distinction of personal charity as being the substitute here. What do you mean by that?
Personal charity, I mean, we're talking about, what is the role, how do we help the poor? And that's what Pope Francis is calling us to do.
In 18th century or 19th century New York was the heart of the matter.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, in this city, there were a lot of poor. He's calling us to pay attention to the poor of this generation. And yes, personal charity is one way to do it, but he's also calling on the economic system to pay closer attention to, the people who are left behind.
Do you see that occurring?
I think he's pushing us in that direction to have that conversation.
It makes a great cocktail conversation in Davos.
People are
Davos
talking.
Isn't the rest of the world, is it?
People are talking about Pope Francis, though, in a way that people haven't been talking about these teachings for a while.
Well, he's upset. He's upset a lot of conservatives who had sort of said, I like this Pope Benedict, and now all of a sudden Pope Francis comes along and starts talking about social justice. He starts talking about economic mobility. He starts talking about economic equality, and conservative Catholics, some conservative Catholics are like, whoa, 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 when in fact he's actually speaking in the words of what Jesus Christ and the Church was founded on. He's speaking directly to them.
So what does that mean, though, for, say, politics here in the U.S. come the 2016 election, when you might have some conservative Catholics running for president?
Paul Ryan.
Here's what I think. If you want a sweet spot for somebody running for president in 2016, you would take on Washington and take on Wall Street simultaneously. And both parties are captive of either one. Democrats seem not to be able to take on Washington. Republicans seem not to be able to take on Wall Street. But you would basically take some of the words of what Pope Francis is saying, fashion them in, and take on both institutions.
Tim, from where you sit in your work at Princeton, we've just celebrated the 50th anniversary of the assassination of a Catholic president. Are Catholics more aligned now with conservative Republicans than they were back then when it was a conservative Democrat?
Yeah, I think there has been a shift. I mean, I think generally it's, with the assimilation of Catholics in this country, they more reflect the general electoral outlook. So, yes, I think they have moved in that direction.
Michelle Meyer of Bank of America Merrill Lynch, senior economist there. One thing, one person who's had an outsized influence on the Pope is Joseph Stiglitz. And he's also played a role in advising to several associations linked to the Vatican. Tell us a little bit more about what is so appealing about Joseph Stiglitz's message to the Pope.
Well, I think it's about being able to provide for everyone. I think it's about being able to offer opportunities for everyone as well, and that seems to be what the Pope is getting at. This is a challenging economy across the globe, not just here in the U.S. It's challenging everywhere, and I think that it's going to take a lot of policy changes, and the Pope clearly has a view on that, is weighing in on that.
Well, here's the other thing, Tim. Tell us more about Pope Francis's background, his personal background, because he was Archbishop of Buenos Aires in 2001 when the economy there collapsed. So that plays into his view of capitalism.
Yeah, we're still learning about, when he was elected, many people didn't know who he was. So we're still kind of learning about him. And his time there obviously had an effect. But also in his personal interactions with the poor, he's somebody who's always reached out.
Tim, the phrase I use is rip up the script, and I mean that with respect today. We just saw images of Desmond Tutu in South Africa, the Anglican experience buttressing up against the Afrikaner experience in South Africa. Within the religion of South Africa, there's been so much tumult. You as a Catholic historian and a thinker of Catholic faith, what do you see for South Africa within their religious tensions as they try to move forward?
Yeah, this is obviously
a huge issue.
Yes, it is. I mean, Mandela was obviously a huge unifying figure. Even as he was sick in the last years of his life and wasn't a public figure, he still kind of, I think, held people together. So what will happen among these groups in the coming days and years is going to be critical.
When you see South Africa, do you perceive that religion is still front and center as it was for Nelson Mandela? I believe he was at a Methodist school coming out of the Kosher tribe way back, the 1930s and 1920s. Is religion still important there?
It seems that it is. Yeah, I think the Anglican Church still has a strong presence there. So yeah, it could definitely play a role.
But if you look at, part of the problem I think South Africa is going to face, which is obviously what we're facing here, been facing here for years, is with Nelson Mandela's passing, but even with his retreat from public life in the last 5 years, politics has become much more bitter in South Africa.
Much more like America.
Much more like America, and much more tension and much more conflict.